What would a loss mean tonight for Purdy? You guys were fighting about who wanted to go first.
Oh, my God.
I just assumed I would. Here's another guy who was a candidate for the Bud list.
He didn't make it?
I don't know. We'll have to see. Wait an hour and 60 minutes. All right, but a loss, I mean, to me, it's more damaging to the team, first of all.
Exactly.
Although they would be 2-4. Guess when they were 2-4 in 2021 and made the NFC title game. They were 3-4 a year later in 2022, made the NFC title game. So that's a little something for the Niners fans. Take heart.
Just for the record, they were 5-0 last year and made the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, they've had slow starts before.
Okay.
They've had good years. Purdy's not the main problem. It's the defense, I think, has been a problem. They've been in the top 3 the last 2 years in total defense. Now they're 12th. Last week, they couldn't tackle James Conner. So the defense has to get it together. Brandon Ayuk had his first great game last week. He hadn't had 50 yards receiving in the first 4 weeks, so hopefully he's getting into shape. But Purdy's got to play better than he did last week. Last week was his first, in my view, that was his first bad game. That was the first time he had a passer rating under 89. He had the 2 interceptions.
Oh, the Vikings game when he said to Brian Flores, your scheme is crazy.
He still threw for over 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. I mean, he wasn't great, but I wouldn't say it was like a bad game. That's the best defense in the league, or one of them right now. So I don't think he was great, but I don't think he was bad. I think he was cooking early in that game. But he's got to be better. But I guess, I mean, to me, this doesn't have long-term ramifications. Like we're talking about, we know he's going to be up for a big contract in the offseason. If he were to continue from what he did last week and play that way essentially most of the season and they have a terrible record, sure, maybe that's an impact. But I think for the most part, he's having a good season. He's not putting up the numbers he has in the past. But look at these rankings where he is this season. Yards per attempt, first. Yards per game, 5th. The 10-yard, 20-yard, and 30-yard completions, first.
Pretty good.
Yeah, but
passer rating.
You can hear it makes Nick Wright angry. Anything that you say positive about Brock Purdy, you can hear him. It literally annoys him.
He's 12th. And then here's the other thing, because again, to me, we're talking, and I think this is where Nick wants to go. We're talking about, will he get the $50 million
I don't
contract?
care about that.
All right, but I care about it. So I'm going to say this. These are the guys and their passer ratings who just got paid $50 million or more per year. Brock Purdy's got a better passer rating than all of them. Jared Goff's the same. 95 is better than Dak. This is this year. Better than Dak. Better than the Prince, if we're still calling him that. Better than J-Lo, Jordan Love. Better. I'm trying to get to catch on. Jalen Hurts, Tua, better than all of them. So he had a bad game last week. He's had some so-so games. But overall, I think he's played fairly well, and he's not the main problem.
Okay.
Do I need to get out the goalpost?
No, I'm going to do that for you, basically. Options here, because a loss tonight would mean we are trending towards Wilds. What I always said we were going to end up at with Brock Purdy. My most classic 2 of all classic 2s there were, which was to the point to where Brew was annoyed with me for my take on Purdy. You ended up annoyed with me for my take on Purdy. And I stood firm because just something was missing. And then Brock Purdy gave us, so we can do a little choose your own adventure. Do we want to hold, because Bruce says I moved the goalposts, Brock Purdy to standard X, Y, or Z? First standard is the one he set out for himself, where he was like, I want to be better in the second half of games and close teams out. Let's see, since he said that, how he's done in the second half of games. Well, it's gone the opposite. So that Brock Purdy set a goalpost right there. My goalpost had been, how is Brock Purdy win? He doesn't have the full set of Avengers. So let's set a goalpost here and see if you can tell a difference. Because when he's got all of them, they never lose unless they're playing Patrick Mahomes. And when he's missing just 1 or 2, but most of these games it's been just 1, they're 2-7, 9 touchdowns, 16 picks, and 82 rating.
Okay, you know what? Before he goes, we got to look at this right now, because this is just getting absurd, honestly. Okay, this is PFF. this whole season he has not had he has not had the full cast of Avengers, and yet Brock Purdy is the number 2 ranked quarterback right now. Okay, and if we just want to take away some of his run and just do passing, he's 3. Okay, just passing alone, so it's not incorporating some of these other things like run and whatnot. So please tell me how. Okay, some stats can be misleading. Look at Derek Carr, right? Because we know that he had such an unbelievable first 2 games that's kind of carrying him through some of these other more less than average games. But when we look at the bulk of it, and we can actually go game to game to game, we can see that Brock Purdy is not the fundamental issue here. So this obsession with want to constantly say that he is the problem is just becoming so absurd at this point. It's borderlining obsession and insanity. I mean, I really don't get it. I really don't. I mean, it's just absurd.
Okay, that's his standard, my standard. What about just the calendar standard, which is, was there a forward-thinking, smart, savvy defensive mind that after he had 20 or so starts, figured him out, and he hasn't been the same since then?
Figured out?
So let's go 10 games ago, up until he played Mike McDonald, who they played tonight, and since then, those look like different players to me. 18-3, 47 touchdowns, 11 turnovers, to 5-5, 11 touchdowns, 11 turnovers.
Like there's a blueprint on
You
Purdy?
were saying 2 weeks ago he was playing well.
No, 2 weeks. You're absolutely right that I thought Brock Purdy played really well 2 weeks ago.
No,
but the
but
week
you were
before,
saying throughout the season.
No, because the
first 3
Vikings
games.
game I didn't think he played well, and last week he didn't play well.
You didn't kill him for that loss.
Right. Well, Brew, we now have correct.
I'm just
that
saying
is all correct.
The first 3 games of the year, you thought he was.
I thought he was playing fine, solid.
Okay,
solid. But the argument's never been, is he solid? The argument is he going to get $60 million, as you mentioned, and the argument is he a legitimate force multiplier? You called him one of the Avengers yesterday.
I think he's played better than a lot of those Avengers.
So again,
I mean, seriously.
Again,
better than Ayuk.
Like Joe Burrow's 1-4.
You think,
we're talking. No, I don't think he's as good as Joe Burrow. But is there something saying about Joe Burrow now?
Well,
Matt Stafford's 1-4.
Yeah,
he don't have a couple receivers.
Brew,
I'm just saying, like you acting like Brock Purdy's trash.
No.
Because they're 2-3.
No, I'm not. What I'm doing is saying, hey, what's the standard we want? Purdy said he wanted to be better in second halves. That hasn't worked out. I said I want to see him play well when he doesn't have the superstar cast. That hasn't seemed to happen this year.
He hasn't played well now. Now he's not played well.
Well,
he's not playing well.
Right.
Leading the league in all those categories I just showed.
3 of those categories were essentially the same thing. 10, 20, 30-yard throws. Yes, he has had a lot of chunk plays. I mean, they are
10-yard.
10 yards is 120.
Yeah, but they're all interrelated. And so if they fall to 2-4, and if it is this team last year, remember the argument, who's more valuable, Christian?
They're all the same thing because they don't agree with my point of view. It's inconvenient for the truth that I'm trying to tell you all is the reality. That's why it's the same thing. Okay, got it. Sure.
McCaffrey or Brock Purdy, I think it will give us.
Did
a little
anybody
light
say
on
it was Purdy? Even I didn't say it was Purdy.
Well, I mean, he literally finished higher in MVP voting, didn't he?
No, he finished 4th, and McCaffrey finished 3rd.
Oh, okay. All right, my bad. Okay, so yeah.
I don't think anybody made that argument.
Can I throw a Shanahan bone into the mix? Why are they so bad in the red zone? Or we think that's, I know the argument they don't have CMC, but I saw on Twitter, every team doesn't have Christian McCaffrey. So, and every team is not, they're 29th best in the red zone. Isn't that
Kansas City's 30th.
Isn't that a little bit? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Patrick. So I'm just saying you can't put it all on the quarterback.
I'm not
because Patrick, the best quarterback in the league, is 30.
So I'm not putting that all on the quarterback. But that exact question is truly the genesis of why this conversation is oddly important to me, because we saw it last year, in my opinion, when Brew would bring up What did Christian McCaffrey win before he came to Brock Purdy?
Well, that's just a question.
Right.
What's the answer?
No, they didn't win anything. Right. and now we're talking about Brandon Ayuk's strugglings as if that has potentially nothing to do with the person passing him the ball.
Oh no, because Jawan Jennings has been great.
Jawan Jennings has.
It's on Ayuk. I think you believe that.
I think mostly for sure. But the point and now.
Mostly for sure. If it's mostly for sure on Ayuk, why are you trying to emphasize it right now that it's on Brock Purdy? Like, what are we talking about? Okay, and literally any other commentator that have done their games has blamed Ayuk. They all said, well, that's what happens when you miss training camp. That's what happens when you sit out or have a stay in. They've all put the blame on Ayuk. So the fact that you now want to kind of use it, you're like half using it against Purdy, half not. It doesn't even make sense. It literally doesn't even make sense.
I think Kyle Shanahan, it would be impossible for you, to find 5 coaches that you could make an argument are better than him. Impossible. And because if you're going to say he hasn't won a Super Bowl, are there 5 active coaches with a Super Bowl ring?
But he's also given up a lot of leads in Super Bowls.
Well,
That's the thing, too.
Patrick Mahomes has come back on him twice.
He was up 10 with 8 minutes left. They should have won that game. And I was glad they didn't. I was pulling for Mahomes. But I'm just saying. And then, of course, Atlanta up 28-3.
Okay, but he's not the head coach of that team.
But he's offensive coordinator. He was calling the plays. And he made bad play calls.
So this is, to me, what happens.
These are facts, Nick.
No, I understand. Those are facts. But because credit ends up oddly being a zero-sum game. That I have no problem with saying, hey, this kid's overachieved all this stuff. But now what we're doing, they played a football game last week against a team that we all agree does not have an impressive defense, where they had the ball at the 42, down
they were missing their field goal
with
kicker.
a minute and a half left, and the quarterback threw an interception. And that has barely been a topic of conversation. And now we're like, how good is Kyle Shanahan really? That bothers me. Kyle Shanahan's great. Kyle Shanahan is a great head coach.
Are people really like that?
What? I mean, it's what Wild.
Purdy has gotten blamed for that.
I'm just saying, if a great coach shouldn't be horrible in the red zone. All these statistics you're talking about with Brock Purdy are also fall on Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan just.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have the rest of that clip. It is funny. And I already talked about the whole Shanahan versus Brock Purdy thing and all of that. Because I think Shanahan is a great coach. But Shanahan does deserve some blame. He's not completely not to blame. Because he's had these problems before Brock Purdy, quite frankly. And you know what's really funny? Because Colin Cowherd did this before, although he's gotten away from it now. He said, let's look at Shanahan's record with Christian McCaffrey and without Christian McCaffrey. And it was completely different, right? It was all the stats and numbers were flipped upside down. So you could also make the argument that Shanahan is too dependent on Christian McCaffrey, that he only knows what to do with Christian McCaffrey. Like, if we want to attack a singular force, well, then we have to be fair about it then. We can't just cook the books and minimize and isolate stats to say this is how bad Brock Purdy is. Well, then do it with some of these other players like Christian McCaffrey or coaches like Shanahan. And the fact of the matter is this idea that Brock Purdy has been playing so bad and that's why they're losing is just insane. It's just absolutely insane because Patrick Mahomes is playing absolutely positively worse than Brock Purdy, yet the Chiefs keep winning. Why? Because of their defense. So again, you want to talk about moving the goalpost or having a misleading conversation like that Nick is trying to say, oh, this is what we're doing for Purdy and this is why it matters to him so much. Do it on for all the other quarterbacks, for all the other teams, for all the other coaches. It's the inconsistency and the lack of equality and fairness with regard to this conversation is what continues to blow my mind. There is no reason to put that way. Okay, Brock Purdy threw an interception at the end of the game. Oh my God, go! He's the only quarterback to ever do that. Oh my God, he's the only quarterback to ever do that. Dak Prescott, who he loves, has never done that. Dak Prescott has actually never done that in his entire career. He's never done it. Patrick Mahomes has never done it. Josh Allen, never done it. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, never done it. In fact, when it's time for them to make a comeback win, they'd win every single time. They're actually all undefeated quarterbacks. They've never had a bad game ever. In fact, fourth quarter, 10 minutes to go, they're perfect. They have perfect passer rating, perfect completion percentage. They've each thrown 100 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And crazy enough, they've also all have ran for 275 yards. It's insane. It's insane. Brock Purdy, though, nope, he's just trash, garbage, awful. It's crazy. Yeah, I know. That's just the reality of it, man. It is. Yeah, you see how absurd that conversation just sounded? That's the conversation that's being had right now. That's what it sounds like when we just want to keep bashing this one singular player. Let's give him no credit, 0 credit for any of the positives that he's done. But then when the team is struggling, he gets 100% of the blame. But then when you push, you say, well, hey, Brandon Ayuk is to blame for some of these issues. And you say, yeah, that's true. But you just kind of said that this is all on Purdy. But now you're saying that Ayuk is also partially to the blame, or also Shanahan has been called out before Brock Purdy was ever even a quarterback of his issues in the second half, that he's really great on script and less great off script. He's better with Christian McCaffrey and then without Christian McCaffrey. Like, which is it, man? Which is it? Why are we so inconsistent? Or maybe it's a combination of these things. Maybe Shanahan needs to be better. Maybe Brock Purdy needs to be better. Maybe Brandon Ayuk needs to be better. Maybe all these players and teams need to be better. Maybe that's the case. Maybe not everyone's fortunate enough to have an elite defense that could help carry a team that's kind of having an injured offensive team, a less than ideal situation. It's just crazy. These conversations keep derailing into madness. I feel like I'm just saying the same things over and over again because we just keep having the same conversation. And again, this is where it's so misleading because we'll say, I need to see Brock Purdy do X, Y, and Z in order for me to say that he's a great quarterback. Brock Purdy does X, Y, and Z. Nah, he's not really that great of a quarterback. And then when Brock Purdy has a moment of failure, like every single quarterback, it's I told you. Why aren't we saying I told you about Patrick Mahomes? Patrick Mahomes needs good players around him for him to put up big numbers and be great. Look at his numbers right now. Why aren't we saying I told you? It's, well, they're winning. Yeah, because of the defense. Because of the defense. And because Andy Reid is able to make other players look great when they're not great players. That's been consistent of Andy Reid's career, his entire career. He's done it his entire career. Before Patrick Mahomes was ever in the NFL, before Patrick Mahomes, when Patrick Mahomes was in diapers, Andy Reid was doing that. And yet, Nick wants to talk about that. We want to bring down other people like Andy Reid or Shanahan to try to elevate Brock Purdy. And yet, that's literally what Kansas City Chiefs fans do about Andy Reid. They literally do that. They want to bring down every single role, every single other player or coach or member of the Kansas City Chiefs in order to elevate Patrick Mahomes. They want to bring down Rashee Rice. They want to bring down Tyreek Hill. They want to bring down Travis Kelce. They want to bring down Spags. They want to bring down Andy Reid. They do it every single time. And Nick Wright himself, depending on where the conversation is. 1 minute he wants to say Rashee Rice is like Jerry Rice, an unbelievable wide receiver. And another he wants to say Pacheco is an unbelievable top running back. But when he wants to elevate Patrick Mahomes, he says, he had nobody. He had nobody. You just said that Rashee Rice is an unbelievable wide receiver and that Pacheco is a top running back and that the defense is the best defense in the NFL. And you want to tell me that then Patrick Mahomes had no one? And then people still want to keep repeating the nonsense. What did Andy Reid do before Patrick Mahomes? He was an all-time great. He was a literal Hall of Fame coach without anyone else. Without Patrick Mahomes. With just his record. If he just retired after his time with Philadelphia, he would have been a Hall of Fame coach. During that 10-year span, or however many years it was, he was second only to Bill Belichick, who had Tom Brady as his quarterback during a defensive era, whereas Andy Reid was an offensive head coach. He literally went to 4 NFC Championship games in a row without a Hall of Fame quarterback. That is unheard of. And only 1 year did he have a Hall of Fame great wide receiver. And that year, he went to the Super Bowl and lost to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, like many people have. But yet everybody wants to bring down Andy Reid and act like he wasn't that good, that Patrick Mahomes made him, which only super obsessed Patrick Mahomes fanboys want to, they live in this alternate reality because they don't understand coaching and how the NFL works. And they probably didn't even watch the NFL. Majority of them, honestly, probably didn't even really watch the NFL until Patrick Mahomes. A lot of new fans, which is very obvious. So if you want to say that people are doing that to Shanahan and Brock Purdy, look at what's happening over in Kansas City. Look how people don't want to give anyone else credit. I literally was talking to someone in the comment section and they said, oh, so now that Josh Allen is playing bad, or Brock Purdy, they're playing bad, they don't deserve any of the blame. They don't deserve any, right? It's everyone but them. And I was like, okay, why did Patrick Mahomes lose in the Super Bowl and the Chiefs against the Buccaneers? And he said, well, because of the offensive line and because Andy Reid's son. And he just literally gave all the responsibility to everyone but Patrick Mahomes. And the fact that people can't see the hypocrisy of that, the walking, talking contradiction of that, is comically absurd. It really is. It really is comically absurd. It makes me question humanity. We wonder why we're in such a mess. It's because we can't even have simple conversations like this. We can't even be remotely consistent on the most simplest of conversations, what we're talking about. We're talking about football right now. We're talking about a coach and a quarterback. We can't even be consistent from team to team to team, which is why they have the running joke of moving the goalpost. Just wild, man. And it's funny because someone could watch this video and they're like, wow, he's a passionate 49ers fan. He loves Brock Purdy. I don't care. I could care less about the 49ers or Brock Purdy. I truly could care less. I care about consistency. I care about honesty. That I do care about. So to Nick's point, when he's like, I weirdly care a lot about this conversation because it's a pet peeve of his, it's an equal pet peeve of mine. We're just on the opposite side, which is why he reacts that way and I react this way. We're on the opposite sides of the conversation, without a doubt. But it's both close to home for us, and I think I know why. Because Nick prides himself on being a very logical person. He's a hyper intelligent person. Whether you agree with Nick Wright or not, he's a hyper intelligent person, and logic really matters to him, which I call out because I think sometimes his logic is flawed. Logic also really matters to me as well. I am very much a 1 + 1 = 2 in all aspects of my life, in my relationships, in my family, in work, in my physical health, in sports, whatever it may be. I am a 1 + 1 = 2. It drives me crazy that I can make a video and I can essentially make the same video twice, identical, same title, same description, same everything. One video can get 10,000 views and another video can get 10 views. And it's like, that doesn't make sense to me. It's the exact same thing. It should respond the exact same way. 1 + 1 = 2. I need things to be 1 + 1 = 2. It's all, but life is definitely an art and a science. There's a lot of luck, a lot of things that are just made up, and some things are truly an actual science, right? I drink water, I get hydrated. I don't drink water, I get dehydrated. So that is why it probably drives Nick crazy. And that's why it drives me crazy, because of the lack of consistency. That we want to bring down other coaches and other players to elevate one, and then we want to do the same thing, but then we want to call it out. Just makes smoke come out of my ears. Oh, gosh. What does a loss mean for Brock Purdy? What does a loss mean for Kyle Shanahan? What does a loss mean for the 49ers? Why is Brock Purdy isolated? Brock Purdy could be isolated if people were talking about him being the GOAT. If people said Brock Purdy's going to be the next GOAT, that is the standard that we can hold him to. I would wholeheartedly agree with that, which is why Patrick Mahomes should be held to that standard, because people are saying he is the GOAT. He is better than Tom Brady or is going to surpass Tom Brady. Those quarterbacks, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, they get held to that standard. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. That makes sense. Nobody is saying that Brock Purdy is the GOAT. So this extra heightened level of scrutiny is insanity. What did a loss mean for Joe Burrow against the Ravens? What did a loss mean for Joe Burrow? What does a loss mean for Lamar Jackson against the Raiders? What does it mean? What does a loss mean for Dak Prescott against the Saints? What does it mean? I don't know. I missed those segments. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about 49ers, Brock Purdy, Shanahan, and everything else that I just ranted and raved for the last 25 minutes? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.